Hi, I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy, and welcome to episode 203 live of Spy Curious, the investigation, corporate, government and private industry news. It's been a very busy week in investigations, and the spotlight is on industry associations and what they do about coercive control when they become aware of it. If you're a member of an industry association, people, ask your association what protections are in place regarding coercive control. You're a member, and if other members are doing that, they're doing it in the name of your association. What is the association's position on using tracking and listening devices and remotely controlled cameras? Does your investigation association have a social media abuse policy? These are the questions you should be asking if you're a member of an industry association. So what's happened this week? Well, on LinkedIn yesterday, I was looking around and this post came up in my feed. A guy saying, who is private investigator Adrian Peeters? So anything that hits the news with private investigator, sensational because it's private investigator. And what is his relationship with at Victoria Police? His LinkedIn profile discloses little. Well, he's a private investigator, naturally. Two, convenient, the wife of the CFMEU, John Sekta, is charged just as she was about to make statements against him. Wow, that came up on LinkedIn yesterday. So what's happened is she's been charged with inciting someone to acquire a firearm without a permit. Now, police investigators have gone and done a search and seizure on her home, and a body-worn camera was used to film her asking someone from the security industry. This is a body-worn camera. You put it on your lapel of your shirt or your jacket, and you record what's going on. Now, it's perfectly legal in Victoria. If you're a party to a conversation, you can record any conversation you like, video or audio. So that's fine. So anyway, using a body-worn camera, they allege she's tried to procure a firearm. Now, she's been involved in a long-running legal battle with her ex-partner, who she alleges committed acts of domestic violence, and he's denied that. Well, that's an allegation. So what's happened? She's been charged with incitement to commit conspiracy to murder for allegedly trying to obtain a gun to shoot Mr. Sekta. And that is on that body-worn camera video. Now, police have got hold of that. Someone's given it to them. This is really interesting. Conspiracy to murder, that 25 years is the maximum penalty. That's some pretty serious time if you get the maximum penalty. Now, nobody ever gets the maximum penalty for conspiracy to murder. It's a very hard thing to prove. If someone's wearing a body-worn camera and they go, yeah, I wish I had a firearm to do this or that, is way different than someone going, can you get me an Uzi with 2 lots of ammunition, and I want it delivered next Friday, and I'll pay the asking price. That's completely different than I wish I could do. It comes down to tone, context, and how they're going to prove that, what questions were asked, the person's state of mind at the time. So what Miss Walters has done, she's engaged a private investigator to check if her house is bugged. And during that conversation, she's raised the issue of acquiring a firearm. Now, she might be a very frightened, vulnerable lady, and she might have explored that. The video will show it, and the truth will come out in the end. I wasn't there, I don't know. So she's been placed under strict bail conditions. It was on the 21st they had the hearing. According to the company's website, Mr. Peeters is a managing director and has been a private investigator for 20 years. Yes, he's in the same industry association as I am, and they've got some issues at the moment with coercive control, but not from Mr. Peeters, certainly not from him. It's up in Queensland, their issues are, not down in Victoria. The company specialises in extramarital affairs, missing persons, fraud investigations. Here's their website. Australia's leading private investigation company. You're allowed to say that. That's okay. So that's there. It also sells, rents out surveillance recording equipment. It's understood Miss Walters told a friend she called the private investigator because she wanted him to debug her house. She told us she believed that John Sekta had bugged the house to spy on her. Now, that's her allegation. That's what a friend said. And who knows what was said? This is reported by a newspaper. What someone said was said was said. Who knows? Okay, so she believes he was listening and everything going on in the house. The source close to Miss Walters said she believed the private investigator recorded the whole conversation from the moment he walked in the house on his body worn camera. This is just one type, there's smaller ones, that sort of thing. So that's what the friend said. Miss Walters says she was in a traumatised state when she spoke to the security expert, and fair enough, if her house has been bugged and she believes that, she believes it for a reason. So she's going through a very traumatic time, as people do, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. The source news said she believed the private investigator, already done that. Speaking outside her home last Thursday, Miss Walters said she was traumatised state. She said some floral things. She's a traumatised woman. She's been subjected to years of abuse. That's her allegation, and I'm sure the truth will come out of that down the track. When asked if she tried to obtain a gun, Miss Walters paused before saying, "I'm not going to respond to that." She denied she wanted the CFMEU leader dead. He's the father of their children, that sort of thing. So she's denied all the allegations, reportedly spoke to the security expert. She's been in a long-running legal battle involving acts of violence that were committed. She's suing the Victorian government. Her bail is extended and she'll face court again in relation to this on July 17th. There's some more about it there. She's been banned from contacting any private investigator, current or past, at Group 1 investigations. So what are your options if you are charged with conspiracy to murder, which is beyond a reasonable doubt, okay, and has a maximum penalty of 25 years in prison? Let's have a look at what the options are. If you're charged with the offence of conspiracy to murder, these are your options. Your legal team may negotiate with prosecution, the police or the DPP, a term referred to as plea negotiations, to request the charges withdrawn, downgraded, or fact sheets amended. So what's going to come into play is the context at the time, the tone and emphasis of the conversation, her state of mind at the time. She was traumatised, as she said. She believes she's been bugged. It's all happening. So that will come into it. The legal team will plead not guilty and go to the hearing and trial and persuade the court the prosecution has not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, it's a really hard thing. There's going to be, 30 minutes of video. They're going to listen to it. They're going to watch it. They're going to turn the sound up, make sure it's audible. They're going to clarify in evidence in chief and cross-examination what each person said. They'll look at the state of the mind of the person at the time, that sort of thing. So that's something that they can do. Your legal team, they can beat beyond a reasonable doubt in plenty of cases. Now, this is got to be beyond a reasonable doubt that she wanted to murder this person. Plead guilty to the elements of the charge and then dispute the facts at a special disputed facts hearing with a view to having sentence less harsh, and or plead guilty with full acceptance of the facts and set out by the police and make strong submissions on your behalf, requesting the court not record a criminal conviction. Now, that'd be pretty powerful if they could do that. So they are the options in relation to conspiracy to murder. She's not allowed to contact any employees of Group 1. Now, that's in Victoria. Up in Queensland, this is where they're having the big problems with private investigators. The Women's Safety and Justice Taskforce was seeking submissions from victims of coercive control. G'day, Taylor. Good to see you. Thanks for checking in. Great for you to say hello. You have a happy Easter. The Women's Safety and Justice Taskforce, basically, they received 2 submissions that private investigators were hired by their exes to exert coercive control over them. So they were followed, put under surveillance, had tracking devices put on their vehicle, listening devices put in their homes and in vehicles, that sort of thing. It really does happen. And there are certain types of marital and relationship private investigators that do that sort of thing. So who undertakes this kind of coercive control? What's their problem? Well, the personality type, the most common sign of narcissistic personality disorder is where a person displays controlling behaviours towards their victim. This is because for narcissists, control is the equivalent to power. Coercive control is a course of conduct, so behaviours are likely to continue over a period of time. Now, this happens in business transactions, business relationships, personal relationships, domestic relationships. For a narcissist, the narcissist wants to control what's going on. Now, for example, an industry association might listen to a narcissist, think they're very highly believable, and not know that they're a narcissist seeking control. So this comes back to one of the big issues I said about checking with your industry association. Up in Queensland, they really have changed their attitude towards coercive control and domestic violence. And why do they do that? Domestic violence in Queensland is now 40% of police work. 40% of it is domestic violence from people with narcissistic disorders. Wow, that's amazing. So they're looking that women who are criminalised have often been victimised or experienced serious trauma. They need support and hope, not an endless cycle of punishment. That's what they're looking at up in Queensland. Now, that's really interesting. That's the way they're approaching it. Here are the members of the Women's Safety Taskforce up here, and they're putting submissions to government in relation to basically what they want to do moving forward. And one of the things that they're doing, let's make sure I've got it here. No, that's not it. I must have lost it. One of the things they're doing is they're going to be legislating for marital and relationship private investigators to undertake training in coercive control and have awareness of it. Now, it's not going to happen this year in 2023, but I tell you what, by the time 2024 kicks over, they're serious. They really are serious about it. And effectively, they're going to have that kind of training for investigators who undertake marital and relationship investigations. Now, there are private investigators that do workers' compensation, never do a marital and relationship surveillance ever. And good on them. You know, there are people that do general insurance investigation, never do a marital and relationship investigation ever. So that's how it goes. And that Safety Task Force for Women know 40% of police work's domestic violence, and they're trying to break the cycle of the victims of that domestic violence. Now, this is an interesting picture. I want you to look at this. This person's having their car serviced, whoever they are. They're just someone I just got it off the internet. Now, notice it goes up on a hoist and they do a 148-point check when they're servicing your vehicle. If your residence is bugged, your car's bugged too. And it's got a tracking device on it. Because, remember what we're dealing with here? We're dealing with narcissists, okay? So they want control. So the vehicle has a tracking device, listening device, and if the residence has got a listening device, that'll be up in the ceiling somewhere, easily found. Now, before you go out and hire a private investigator to come and debug your house and take all the risks with who you're interacting with and what happens during the and you're upset and you're traumatized and all that sort of thing, if you think your conversations are being listened to, your residence is bugged, your car is bugged, simply contact your vehicle service provider and book in for a service at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Now, do this at 4:45 in the afternoon. The people listening to you booking in to have your 148-point car check on a hoist by qualified mechanics who know what a listening device looks like. They're very big. What a tracking device looks like. They're very big. Okay, they're going to find it. And these things cost $300, $350. Now, in it's going to be a SIM card that links back to the private investigator who's doing the tracking on behalf of the client, the ex or whatever. If that's the case in Queensland, that's not the case. There's no allegation of that in Victoria. But in Queensland, this is what they do. And this is what the Women's Taskforce have found that they do. Tracking devices, listening devices, remotely operated cameras, all these things are in action. Okay, so they're going to clamp down on it. But anyway, you book in 4:45 in the afternoon for your car to be serviced at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. The people who have that tracking device and listening device in your vehicle are going to come and have to get the tracking device off. Now, remember, it's 4:45. You're going to leave at 7 a.m. to drive for an hour to get to the service centre. They've got to come in that night into your driveway, get underneath your car and get that tracking device, which by this stage you've probably already found anyway now. They want it back because it links back to one of their burner phones, and that burner phone through GPS can go straight back to their office or their residence or whatever, and then they're in big trouble for using tracking devices. Okay, and when it comes around to what these people want to implement, those investigators are going to be in even more trouble. So any industry association that fosters and encourages the use of those things and covers it up is going to be in trouble too, whether they're in Victoria, New South Wales or Queensland. So this is really big news with what's happening in relation to what seemed like a rather innocuous post yesterday on LinkedIn in relation to someone asking a question over Emma Walters and Adrian Peeters and Group 1. So it'd be interesting to follow. It's going to court in July. Very interesting, and see what happens then. I guess there are other issues with other matters that they've got. They might be before or after, I don't know. Other news this week. Police are appealing for a pair to surrender a platypus taken from Moreton Bay. So here's a photo of them getting on a train at the train station carrying a platypus. So what they've done is they've nabbed an Australian piece of Australian native wildlife, and the fine for what they've done is $431,250. Now, these things eat their body weight in crustaceans, freshwater crustaceans, worms, grubs, horrible crawly things, yabbies, that sort, every day. I don't know what these two people think they're going to feed that platypus. Bread? Well, it's not going to eat that. It's going to starve to death. And they're going to be responsible for the death of a rare Australian native animal. Now, how he even caught it's beyond me, because those things are so damn shy. It's a very hard thing to do to catch a platypus. Let's have a look at some of the jobs that are available this week. And today we're specifically looking at government investigation jobs. I'm not looking at private investigator jobs today. This is just government investigation is what I want to look at. So when you're looking for work, the Australian Private Investigator Corporate and Government Investigation Jobs Facebook page is the place to go. Now, this is for Australian Security Academy students to research where to go and get work. If you're not an Australian Security Academy student, don't bother going here, because you haven't got the qualification that an employer wants. So here we were looking at government investigations today. So let's have a look at what's available. There's an experienced security vetting analyst for Cirrus Consultants at 8 Mile Plains. They've also got one for Canberra as well. So this is a great opportunity to work with Cirrus Consultants at 8 Miles Plains. Now, they're asking for an experienced security vetting analyst, and there are experienced security vetting analysts. You've got to have an NV1 clearance. You've got to have the Certificate 4 in government security personnel vetting to get that role. If you haven't got that, you won't get the role. So this is a demand qualification at the moment in Australia. They want to collect and assess sensitive information, interview personnel, identify and assess risks and anomalies, and provide evidence-based analysis and reports. So they do security vetting for the Australian Defence Force and also for people migrating to Australia. So that's what they're doing. They're paying $2,000 a week for you to do that. Sirius is one of the largest external vetting service providers in Australia. There's several of them, and you can Google them. Our personnel come from diverse and specialised backgrounds. It's committed to supporting professional development of their staff. With opportunities out there, they must hold and maintain NV1 security clearance and must be an Australian citizen. Certificate for in government security personnel vetting is required, and they want 2+ years of vetting experience. Now, I've got students out there that don't work for Sirius but have worked for some of the other ones, and they earn a very high income in relation to this type of work. It is the type of work where you work at home from your home office alone. You don't go into any team environment in an office. So if you can't hack that, don't do it, right? But if you can hack that, and that's what you like, and investigators work alone, well, you can. There's an EL1 Assistant Director for Tactical Intelligence for the NDS Quality and Safeguards Commission. Now, they haven't put the money there, but this will be substantial money. So what they're going to want, if you hold that role, is they're going to want you to have a diploma of government investigations. That's what they want. It's got your name on it. You see it there. They want you to hold this. This is a really high level role. It's a management role. That's what the diploma of government investigations is all about. So if you want to apply for that job, you must have that diploma of government investigation. You'll be leading and coordinating intelligence projects. You are a manager of investigations and intelligence when you hold that diploma. The Senior Inspector for the Department of Justice down in Burnie, Devonport, and also Launceston, and they're paying $98,000 down there. Now, this job comes up regularly. We often advertise this one. It's a real beauty, and consistently every couple of years, these vacancies come up with the DOJ down in Tassie. So really great opportunity down there. Let's have a look at the personnel vetting qualification and what they actually have to have. I made a little video of this earlier. We'll bring it up. Here we go. So it's around about 12 weeks to complete that qualification, studying self-paced online. It's one of my very most popular qualifications, that one. People love it. So it's a really great opportunity. And if you were smart and you saw all the other security vetting agencies, apart from Cirrus Consulting there, you can see the whole list of them. You'll be able to Google them and do your own research in regards to it. NDIS Quality Safeguards Commission down in Sydney are looking for an EL1 Assistant Director Tactical Intelligence. I think I've just covered that. DOJ in Devonport, yep, done that. New South Wales Department of Customer Service after a senior dispute resolution officer as work as an investigator. So they'll be looking at dispute resolution in relation to matters that's covered by their independent review office. And so this is a senior position. With this one, you're going to have a minimum of Certificate 4 in Government Investigation to get that role. So today we're only looking at government investigation jobs. So you have to have personnel vetting, as government security for the Cirrus Consulting one. This one, you have to have Certificate 4 in Government Investigation. In Townsville, in northern Queensland, in local government, they're looking for an investigations coordinator up there. So that's an interesting one. And this is a corporate one more than anything else. Sorry. Sorry, just lost it. So I'll have to leave it at that. I'm coming up with these private investigator stuff right now. So let's go and have a look at the really important thing that's happened in private investigations this week. I'll leave that there for a while. Just to remind everybody, I'll leave that there about your car being bugged. Don't forget, book it in before just before 5 o'clock, and those people are going to come round to your house and they're going to try and take that tracking device back. So that's really important. Now, this is what happened this week down in Tasmania. Now, it's very sad. It resulted in a fatal accident. As a private investigator, you're going to do fatal accident investigations. Get very used to that. You're going to put together the last 3 weeks, the last 7 days, the last 2 days, the last 2 hours of somebody's life before it became extinct of life. Now, you've got to be ready for that and ready to step up to that. Why? Because someone has to do it. Now, in this case, no private investigator was involved in this one, but it's so similar to what we do, it's worth looking at here so you, the Australian Security Academy student, can understand the process and how they work it out. Now, down in Tasmania this week, it came out in the newspaper that Peter Bowlesley, his death was ruled no fault in a service pit death at Midway Point in Hobart, Tasmania. That's just down past the airport in Tasmania. Now, here's Peter. He's died a couple of years back as a result of the accident on that night. Now, you can go and have a look at what happened, but basically he went to the pub and he was very responsible. He didn't drive. And walking home, he fell into a service pit for Telstra and was asphyxiated by the position he was in. He was affected by alcohol. He had a very high alcohol reading. And the exact spot where he did it was behind this lawnmower, as you can see in McKinley Street down in Tasmania. So that's the exact spot where it happened. He was walking along that road up the top left corner and he might have fallen, stumbled or whatever into the verge of the grass there, and behind that lawnmower he's gone into the pit and either knocked himself out or whatever. Now you can look this up and Google it and type in Peter's name. And the coronial, without investigation into the fatal, without the inquest, is listed there. And it lists the identity of the deceased as Peter Donald Bowlesley. Now, that's the number one thing in all investigations is identity. If you're going to do surveillance on someone, who are you doing it on? What's their identity? Last week, I talked to you about twins and triplets, that sort of thing. In this case, this is the identity of the person. He was born in 1959. He was aged 62 years at the time of his death. He was a retired postman. All of this is listed. It's freely available information. He had a history of excessive alcohol consumption. People do. It's no crime. That's what happens, leading to a breakdown in previous relationships and regular commission of alcohol-related offences. Mr. Balsley was in a reasonable health but suffered hypertension, type 2 diabetes and gout. So with gout, it's usually in your foot or leg, and that may affect your walking. And he was walking home, remember, he wasn't driving, he was being responsible. So on the morning of Saturday, the 11th of September, he was drinking beer at his home in Midway Point, Tasmania. After leaving home for a short period of time, he returned with some friends about 12:30. They had a few beers, and then his friends went to the Midway Point Tavern. So it's Saturday, they're going there to have a bet on the races, a bit of gaming and a bit of socialising. So after they left, Mr. Balsley told his wife he wanted to join them, he would be back for dinner. So at 2:20, he arrived at the Midway Point Tavern. Now they've got CCTV, it's a gaming venue, so they can confirm that in the process of the coroner's investigation. And all this would add up on their time and event line. He arrived and stayed there until 6:30 p.m. So he's had 4 hours and 10 minutes of socialising and whatever. He drank 7 beers while he was at the tavern. Again, they got CCTV, and became heavily intoxicated. When Mr. Balsley did not return home for dinner, his wife made numerous attempts to contact him through friends. They could not ascertain his whereabouts, as he didn't have a mobile phone with him. They continued to make phone calls, and at 8:20, some people started searching for him. Mrs. Balsley contacted the police the next morning at 8:20. At 9:30, a local resident, Michael O'Connor, spotted a human foot protruding from a concrete pit maintained by the Sorell Council, which ran along the paling boundary fence of 2 McKinley Street, Midway Point. This pit was about 420 metres deep, with stone sides and 360 millimetres wide. It contained Telstra wires and connections for, Telstra communications and phone and internet. The forensic pathologist conducted a full autopsy, concluded that Mr. Balsley died as a result of positional asphyxia following a fall whilst intoxicated. So this is what security guards do to people when they actually kill them, is they can't breathe as a result of the position that they're smothered in. The autopsy also revealed that Mr. Balsley had advanced atherosclerotic coronary vascular disease, which contributed to his death. His toxicology testing revealed he had a very high blood alcohol content of 0.289. This alcohol level is consistent with the investigation evidence regarding the number of beers consumed by him before his death. So at home, during the visit by his friends, and the 7 beers over 4 hours that afternoon. All of that can be confirmed by the CCTV at the gaming venue of the Midway Point Tavern. So the coroner is satisfied upon the evidence. Mr. Balsley was in process of walking home from the Midway Point Tavern, which was very responsible. He accidentally fell in the pit in an intoxicated state. He was either knocked unconscious by the fall because of his intoxication, and he could not remove himself. He was unable to breathe, and subsequently he died. So it goes into describing more about that and how attending police were wearing body cameras and how all the contacts were made and all that sort of stuff. It's a very tragic situation. They always are fatal accidents. In the summing up of the report, the coroner's report, they listed some dot points about the police report of the death for the coroner, the affidavit of the forensic pathologist regarding the cause of death, the toxicology report. And this is one thing that you've really got to get used to here. Affidavits confirming life extinct and identification. If nothing gives you a total dose of reality ever, when you are conducting a fatal insurance investigation or an investigation of a civil nature regarding negligence and liability, you're going to read in the doctor's report and the coroner's report and whatever, confirming life extinct. No coming back. So that's the professionals. Only doctors and coroners, they can do it. No one else can. So There's the affidavits of his wife, of some witnesses, attending investigators, and their body-worn camera. Hey, we've got the body-worn camera again, so we're focusing on body-worn cameras today. There's one there. So that's interesting. There were no criticisms of the Surreal Council and any kind of like barrier to that. What he did was a once-in-a-lifetime fall into something. As a result of his intoxication going down the hill, I don't think they could recreate that accident. It would be a very difficult thing. You can't put it in a wind tunnel and go, this is how it happened, because they still don't know. He could have hit his head and been knocked out. And then the position he went in, he was smothered, or he went in and then he was smothered. So a local resident spotted his foot protruding. It would be an awful thing to find. He was tragically deceased. There was no liability. What do you think about the responsible service of alcohol? The coroner said the tavern didn't warrant criticism as it had served Mr. Balsley mid-strength beers. He was not noticed by the bar attendant to be heavily intoxicated and was seen to place his bets without difficulty. So she also said it was appropriate to make a recommendation for the Surreal Council to install a barrier. It wasn't appropriate. So, this was just an accident. So the cause of death, positional asphyxia, result of accidental fall whilst intoxicated. So that's what they found. So that is a standard investigation of a fatal accident that didn't involve a motor vehicle. When you do it as an licensed private investigator, it'll be a dependency investigation to find out who the dependents are of this person who has accidentally died. Now, they might have died in a car accident or a work accident or had a heart attack at an event or something like that, and that workplace or event's being sued, and the dependents of the deceased are entitled to compensation. And it's got to go to the right dependents, not the grandparents or uncle and aunt who want to put it through the pokies for the dependents. It's got to go to the dependents in their future. And this is what the TAC in Victoria and WorkSafe in Victoria ensure, and WorkSafe in Queensland and New South Wales, they ensure it goes to the right people. And your role is to be to identify them through statements you take and investigations that you. It'll be quite clear in your instructions. In any fatal accident, the instructions might go on for 15 pages. And they'll have the report from the police and the ambulance and all that sort. It'll take you 3 hours to read them, but you get paid for it. So that's really interesting. So that's today's program, people. For those jobs, you're going to look at, you're going to have a diploma of government investigation for the high level ones. For the really big fraud ones, diploma of fraud control. That's what all the people at Services Australia, Centrelink and NDIS do with us. And certificate for in government investigations. And having a membership of an industry association as a government investigator is also highly valued. So that's really interesting. Just forgot to show you, this is Mr. Balsley's walk on the way home. So here we're looking at the cross-section of Penner Road, which he was walking along, and McKinley Street. And so he's gone along Penner Road, he's walked down and he stumbled across the grass verge, and where that circle is, that's where he entered the pit and was knocked out and consequently suffocated. This is the distance he walked. He walked 1, 2, 3 blocks from the Midway Point Tavern to McKinley Street. Got to McKinley Street, somehow got on that verge, stumbled down and hit his head in relation to where that was. So barriers are so important to holes for local councils, for telecommunications, for underground communications, all that sort of thing. As an investigator, you'll just be surprised what falls into holes. Horses, cattle, and they're always very expensive ones, people. I had a lady, she fell in a local council hole once. She broke both her legs when she fell in. She was in such a dangerous suburb. She fell in around about 2 o'clock in the morning. She wouldn't cry out for help. She knew she'd broken her legs, and if anyone had come along in that suburb and she drew the attention of the wrong people with 2 broken legs, she couldn't defend herself. So what would have happened to her would have been a very bad outcome. Fortunately, when next morning a bloke walking his dogs discovered her in the pit and alerted authorities to it and got her out. But she had a very traumatic night with 2 broken legs in a hole, and it was uncovered by some children playing in the playground. The hole was for playground equipment. It was 6 feet deep. It was uncovered by some children just mucking about. It wasn't left uncovered by the council. When they left it, they used to take photos of that sort of thing. So that's really interesting. People, you've been watching episode 203 of Spy Curious. The pressure's on in relation to industry associations and checking coercive control amongst their members. So pressure's really on. There's responsibility there. You can't walk away from it. You can go and have all the police inspectors talking about this and that. The harsh reality of private investigators is coercive control is an issue in Queensland, and 40% of police work in Queensland is on government investigation. Thanks, David. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate it. You have a happy Easter too, mate, and enjoy it. I hope it's a good one. So, people, that's it. We'll go out in our usual way, and we'll be back next week with Investigations Uni. Investigations Uni is not on tomorrow because it's Good Friday, but we'll be catching up with that. It'll be back on next week. That'll be episode 31, I think, for that one. Here we go.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
Mission complete. All units return to base. Certificate for in government investigation from the Australian Security Academy, people, is your key to those jobs today. Or a diploma of government investigation's got your name on it. It's your destiny on it. Or if you're in a management role, you'll have a diploma of fraud control. All of that is backed up by our industry association, AirLap, which is free when you hold any of those qualifications. And if you're going to do negligence and liability, fatal investigations for TAC or for MAIC or for the MAIB in Tasmania, you're going to need a Certificate 3 in Investigative Services. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. That was episode 203. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.